Ever since I was a child, I've been fascinated by animals. I filled my parents' house with snakes and lizards, birds and insects. But it wasn't just the individual creatures I was interested in. I was curious how the whole of the natural world worked.
In particular, why nature is the way it is. Not just animals, but plants too. The theory of evolution claims to explain it all. That's why I'm doing a series of experiments first done 150 years ago.
Beautiful, isn't it?
I will introduce a snake to a troop of monkeys. Prepare breakfast for a plant that eats insects.
First time I've ever fed a bit of sausage to a plant. Now, here we go.
And I will serenade an earthworm with classical music.
It's all about Charles Darwin. He carried out these experiments and many more to help unlock the secrets of evolution.
Inspired. Outrageous.
No, they're not impressed.
Illuminating.
Right, okay. Let's go and see what they're up to. I've never ever done this before.
These experiments test Darwin's theory of evolution. It was seen as dangerous then, and still seen so today. Charles Darwin's voyage to the Galapagos Islands is the stuff of legend. But there's another part of his life which is much less familiar. It is perhaps the strangest story in science. In 1842, the ambitious young geologist shuns most of his scientific colleagues and shuts himself away in his country house in Kent. For nearly 20 years, he refines his theory in almost complete secrecy. He runs a series of clever experiments that explore the different elements of evolution, and it's this extraordinary work I'll recreate. What's remarkable is that Darwin hides the manuscript that could change the world forever in a cupboard under the stairs.
Darwin turns his house, his gardens and his greenhouse into a laboratory and embarks on what I think is one of the most exciting series of experiments and observations in scientific history. Piece by piece, Darwin builds up his picture of evolution. This journey is as full of adventures and unexpected challenges as the one he made around the world. Now, this is a copy of a sketch Darwin made in one of his secret notebooks. And it's a really good illustration of how he saw evolution. And it's a kind of tree of life. And at the base of the trunk is a common ancestor. And all the branches coming off of that represent different plants and animals that have evolved over the eons of time.
A simple enough diagram, but it's a radical new way to look at the natural world. Every branch of Darwin's tree of life shows an extraordinary process at work. Ancient creatures transforming into a myriad of modern ones. Evolution. Controversially, Darwin has replaced God the creator with evolution the process. Darwin knows it will be difficult to make others accept his theory. The church will attack him. The scientific establishment will ridicule him. Even his own wife Emma, a devout Christian, disapproves of his work. In his modest study, Charles Darwin works on the biggest idea in biology. His theory will try to explain the whole of the natural world. But as he ponders the complexity of life, he must have wondered where to start. In the end, his first experiment is quite unexpected, almost random. I want to start where Darwin starts, with this revealing experiment.
I'm just trying to find some compost.
Luckily, I can get most of the stuff I need from the garden centre. The garden centre has plants flown in from all over the world, but Darwin wants to show how plants travel around the globe by themselves. It's not as obvious as you might think.
I've bought myself some seeds and some seed compost. And basically I'm going to put seeds in salt water and then after a period of time see if they grow. And so this looks like a very simple experiment, but it's answering a much bigger question of how plants spread around the planet.
The idea for Darwin's experiment about how plants travel is sparked by a letter from his friend, the botanist, Joseph Hooker of Kew Gardens. Hooker tells him that he has discovered that many plant species living at the tip of South America also grow on the remote islands in the Indian Ocean. Hooker challenges him to explain how this could happen. So, to see how Darwin answered Hooker, I'm going to my farm in Suffolk, where I'll recreate his seeds experiment. I have a copy of Darwin's notes to help me follow his thinking about how plants spread.
I've got the notebook. So we need 35 grams of sea salts for every litre of water. It's almost like a Charles Darwin recipe. And in fact, that's what his experiments are, and that's what all experiments are, is you follow a recipe. And it's a wonderful thing to do because it's, you know, it's like being a kid again. You're putting all things in and seeing what's happening. And when you think of science, you think of expensive laboratories and advanced equipment. But really, you can do very important science with some really basic equipment.
If the same plants are found thousands of miles apart, most Victorians assume God simply chose to put them there, and that is that. But Darwin sets out to provide a scientific explanation which doesn't require the hand of God.
If these seeds germinate, it will show that it is possible for plant seeds to travel the ocean. It is possible for them to survive for a period of time in salt water, in other words. But it's not conclusive evidence. It's not saying, yes, this is completely right. It just adds another piece to the jigsaw. I'm saying it is a possibility. Because there's lots of other factors that how seeds travel around. They cling on to animals, they get blown in the wind, continents move with the plants on them. So it's not saying it's a definite, but it's adding that little bit more evidence to say it could happen.
Darwin wants to prove that seeds can resist salt water, usually considered poisonous to them.
Right, let's put them up here. The seeds can soak for a month in the salt water, and we'll come back and see how we get on.
Darwin calculates that an ocean current can carry a seed halfway across the Atlantic in 4 weeks. So he soaks his seeds in salt water for a month, and so will I. Now, have any of my poor seeds made it?